Hello and welcome to Focus on Parliament on Civic Space TV, brought to you by the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am Isaac Kwagala, your host. Today we discuss two distinct but quite related matters. We begin in Kololo, where the NRM National Delegates Conference, which has been quite a dramatic and chaotic public spectacle, continues to unfold right before our eyes. On today's edition of Focus on Parliament, we interrogate what this means for our country's democratic outlook in the context of the forthcoming 2026 general elections. Also, on the program, we examine the controversial Nakivubo channel giveaway by the president to the businessman Hamis Chigundu for redevelopment and what implications it could portend for the country's public policy and the spectrum of the environmental protection in the capital city, Kampala. I am now joined by a panel of experts from the spheres of politics, history, academia, but also the social commentary of the country to help us put perspective to this conversation. Let me introduce them, beginning from my immediate left is Mr. Brian Athaile Batenda, a member of the opposition People's Front for Freedom and an MP hopeful for Chinchizi East West in Kanungu district. It's a pleasure to have you, Brian.
Nice to have you too. How are you?
Good, thanks. Many thanks for joining us this morning. Next to Mr. Brian is Professor Mwambusa Debesa, who is quite a regular on the program, but regrettably for some reason, he's been missing in action. He will tell us where he has been, but it's a pleasure to have you, Professor, back again on the program.
Thank you, and good morning to the listeners and the viewers out there. Now, I've not been in action, but maybe action is in a different way. And I'm glad to be here to share with you issues of national importance.
It's always a pleasure, Professor. Next to Professor is Mr. Tarwana Ernest, who is a lawyer and a social commentator. Ernest, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to be here.
Many thanks for joining us this morning. Last but not least is the gentleman, Mr. Imam Mujisha, the Executive Director of a civil society organization, the Youth Concern on Environment and Development. Imam, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you for inviting me, and I'm glad to be here. Good morning, our viewers outside there.
Thank you. It's a pleasure for joining us today. Professor, let me start with you so that we could get some historical context on what really the NRM Delegates Conference is and why we now seem to have an expectation of either a bitter fallout or an intense implosion that could end up spilling over into the mainstream national politics of the country. But to provide some background, the NRM has been organizing its delegates conference at the Kololo Independence Grounds, presided over by its national chairman, who also doubles as the head of state, President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni. And this comes against the backdrop of a very heated and intense rivalry between the current Speaker of Parliament, Anita Among, who we now confirm has prevailed over her arch-rival and predecessor, the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga. This has been the major highlight of this election. Professor, what is your reading of this delegates conference and its conclusion?
Thank you. The conflicts that you see in the delegates conference are not unique. Maybe the intensity, but they have been like that since independence. The delegates conference that took place in Guru sometime, I think in 1964, or thereabout, or 5, I think maybe 4, actually divided UPC. And these other following delegates conferences you have had in DP, in other parties, have ended up fracturing the political parties. But these political parties are fractured predictably because as a post-colonial state Uganda, the people are not convinced by ideological positions or policy positions or practice positions when they are competing with each other. It is not a competition of ideas. In fact, what happens like now in the NRM, you can see that the competition is not based on ideas or policy direction. The competition is based on just individual differences, whether one has more money or the other one has less, or even which tribe or ethnic group or ethnic region that you come from. So we are not locating and rooting our politics. We have not been rooting our politics in civic ideals that cut across, that are more or less universal. The civic ideals I'm referring to would be like the things of equality, social justice, rule of law, respect for diversity, and the like. But since there is lack of civic ideas, civic ideals and principles and values and norms that would unite the different people from the different areas of Uganda, because if I believe in equality and I'm from Kasese and another one believes in equality in Moroto and another one in Arua and another one in Masaka, that unites different people from different ethnic backgrounds in the country. But here, because we don't prioritize ideas, you know, in Uganda, the system operating now is not prioritizing ideas, ideals, or values. They prioritize royalty over ideas. And that is why even somebody can, I will give you the example of Honorable Kadaga, who has won. So, Honorable Among, Anita Among. Not long ago, the NRM claims to be a space that is corruption-free, or at least fighting for corruption-free. And Anita Among went to Rwengo and told the people that, look, if you steal public resources and come and share with the population around in your home area, it is okay, it is normal, it is ideal, it is fitting. That is a national leader. And this is a national leader who has received popular support. So you can see that prioritization is not of ideas. The prioritization is of royalty.
To who?
To the president, to the chairman of the party. And this is across all the parties, whether DUP, whether FDC, whether DP or UPC. It is royalty to an individual who is leading the organization rather than prioritizing ideas and ideals and principles and values and norms that would otherwise unite all the people. So what is happening is expected because we as a country, since independence, have failed to prioritize principles and ideas, more so civic ideas, and we have prioritized. Museveni put it very correctly in the last, when he was appointing the last cabinet, this current cabinet actually. He says for us we prioritize fishermen. By fishermen, it is clearly understood what he meant. He meant those with royalty to me rather than national ideas, national ideology. And this has been a practice since the system came into office, because NRM, I know its history, was left-leaning, socialist, left-leaning, yeah, in ideology, in rhetoric. But when it came to appointments, they prioritized royalty. So you could see reactionaries. Some people think reactionary means those ones who are vigorous. No. Reactionaries actually are conservative, are worse conservatives, those who take the clock back. those are the ones who are prioritized, meaning that it is the fishermen and women, which means those with less understanding of ideas and ideology, but more of loyalty to the individual, and not even loyalty to the individual, maybe the party, but even not loyalty to the ideology, not loyalty to the principles, not loyalty even to the country. You see, so what is happening is expected. It is the trend which we have failed to break, and therefore, when it comes to elections, you find somebody bribing and is not punished, is not prevailed upon, because people have been using money, and everybody has seen it. You saw? There is even a minister whom we saw giving out 200 shillings to the voters, even who were already in the line, but nothing was done about him. He should have been arrested, because that is breaking the rules of the country. So, unless and until we reach that point where we prioritize loyalty to ideas and ideologies and principles, that mostly civic principles, because we are a country that is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural, multi-everything, and therefore you cannot prioritize ancestral cultural ideals to unite Uganda. No, you have to prioritize civic ideas, what we call civic ideas, such as, I gave you examples, such as equality, social justice, rule of law, commitment to diversity, commitment to tolerance. And in Uganda, when you are intolerant is when they will support you, they will give you more support. And therefore, we are groping in the darkness. Many people are paying money, people are holding people in hotels, people are abusing others, people are supporting corruption publicly, and they are supported, and they are voted. And then we have another challenge, as I complete this submission, we have another challenge. When NRM came into power, had just come into power, political appointments were based on, related to civic ideals, by the way, they were based on a broad base based on political parties. Picking from this political party, because political parties largely, they have national support or national image, and to bring them to the system. But later on, ethnic balancing took over from political balancing, from political party balancing. So it was now ethnic balancing. Now, when you use ethnic balancing in appointments, then you end up making ethnicity or tribalism salient. That is why now tribalism has become salient, and it is continuing to be salient, and you can see it is reflected in the voting patterns. But lastly, there is also the question of nurturing not the value, now it can't be a value, nurturing the habit of militarism, of militancy, of militarism and commercialization of elections, and which has translated into these vices. Now we have the vices reflected in these elections, and it will be reflected in other elections. You have the vice of election rigging, election violence, commercialization of elections, and balancing tribalism.
Thank you, Professor, for your perspective. Brian, let me come to you. As a member of the opposition, I am certain that you have observed these elections of the NRM with keen interest. Do you feel that the NRM is now at a point where it has degenerated, and therefore this could afford you a competitive advantage over it?
First, if I answer that, I'm not shocked at what happened. Because what's happening at national level is actually more, you can say it's more, it's just shows how even these delegates have come into place. The delegates themselves, from the village to the district, there was contestation, use of money, and violence to produce those delegates, because these delegates are not picked one by one. It's a process that produces them. The way you get LC1 to LC2, LC3, and LC5 all become a flag bearer, because all flag bearers are candidates in that delegates conference. If you're LC5 flag bearer, you're a candidate. If you are a flag bearer for MP, you are a delegate. So how did these MPs get those flags? Because the last time I was here, we were discussing the violence and the use of money that was in choosing these so-called flag bearers and leaders of the NRM. So these are finals, and at finals you expect the best. In fact, I am shocked there was this violence in Kororo and in the youth elections, because and it's less because the military is at every point to prevent the violence. But should you allow them to be in one place without the military being involved, like you have PFF in a place or NUP or FDC in a place without the military being involved, you'd have seen blood actually going on the floor. But because there is a lot of deployment in Kororo, and because Museveni is there, because the ministers are there, every minister has candidates, have bodyguards, and therefore it's not easy to attack a candidate. So it's about militants that is controlling the violence in NRM. Otherwise, without being military being deployed as it is deployed, you'd have seen more problems. Secondly, the use of money. Like I said the other time, where money is, expect violence. Where money is, expect violence, because it becomes about I have invested this in this. It's not about it's not about my ideas. It's about what I've invested in. And the fight for money and power is in most cases where there's no democracy, like in Uganda. You expect bullets to be up and blows to be up, and that's what's happening. So these were finals, and the violence actually was curbed, and is curbed by the presence of Museveni, whom they fear very much, but also the presence of the military. At every maybe 10 meters there is a soldier or a police officer, either in uniform or non-uniform. So people are scared. They are saying the state is here, so we cannot do this now. Where it escalates, it shows you that the people that are boiling, and that's it. To have a chance at an election in Uganda is whether they fight or not fight isn't something I'm thinking about, because if they can fight and they are all yellow, they all support Museveni. Museveni, the commander of his rogue army and the military. So what do you expect when he unleashes you, the budget of the country on you, and the bullets of the country and guns and on you in the field? So you can't celebrate on what's happening in NRM and think that it will gain you. No. In fact, it's pre-mock. There's going to be UNEB. It's a clear that this is pre-UNEB, and I'm using the jargon of primary 7. If you do a pre-mock exam, you expect to do mock. Now this is they're just showing us what they expect the country to be in the next election, and the person should learn from it, and therefore be resolute and more strong, and go in knowing that it's actually more violent than expected, because the violence that happened in the NRM primaries alone, and not the violence happening at the National Delegates Conference, where Museveni is seated like this, and they say they love him, they fought for peace, for democracy, and their chairman is seated, and chairs are flying all over. He will be lucky if he doesn't get a knock. You saw him saying he wants to be available to preside over the youth elections. That's not his role as the chairman of the party. In fact, I was also shocked at how they were voting yesterday, that the districts were voting as districts. They say Kanungu, you vote. Kadaga, 6. Among 29. Says Buchigoga, you vote. Therefore, there was no need for, apart from calling them to bribe and influence, there was no need of me coming from Kanungu to go to Nambole or to Kororo to vote for Kadaga or to vote for anybody. They could have voted from the district and sent results here. They would have saved the country resources, because that money being used is not any money. It's our taxpayers' money. And also, can they show us receipts on whether they paid for Kororo? Can PFF call a meeting at Kororo? Because these things must be. Can you go to Nambole And can they show us receipts? Can they show us also the permission they got from police to have those delegates conference? Because for us, if we want to have one, we must go to police and have the venue. We must hire the venue. The state is fused. I can say the state, which is the military, the what, and the party. They are fused. You can't separate them. And it's dangerous for democracy, dangerous for us in opposition, but also dangerous for NRM itself. Because if such couple is running with Rwashande and the UPDF is used to make sure that Rwashande comes, it's not only dangerous to me. The people who are being killed in these processes are not opposition people. They are just Ugandans. Therefore, every Ugandan, where they are, whether opposition or the government, nobody is safe. And if you're not safe in NRM, expect not to be safe in PFF, in NUP, in DP. Even the DP is also part of NRM. But if you're true opposition, don't expect to be given a hug or a kiss. It's tear gas, it's bullets, it's bombs, and that's what's coming in the next election.
That's an interesting assessment. Ernest, this process has been unmistakably marked with massive, widespread irregularities, to the extent that actually some of the scheduled elections, especially in respect of the Entrepreneurs League and the Youth League of the NLM, have been suspended, duly approved by the chairman of the party. He has conceded to some of those irregularities himself, and he has said, we cannot proceed this way. Let us review some things and organize fresh elections. What does this tell you as a social commentator about the democratic trajectory of the NRM and the country?
Well, I'll say this as someone who was born in 1999. This is all we have known, so it's not surprising that this is what we're going to perpetrate. It's a youth league and you're seeing people using rigging, using violence, because that's the reality they've been born into. No one, rightly as Professor said, that we should look towards ideals, we should look towards policies and the like, but a young man who was born into Uganda and sees Uganda as it is he going to look towards ideals that are going to make him unpopular, or is going to look towards playing the politics and the game as it works? So it is unsurprising that that's how youth league politics are. Even anyone who has observed Makerere University politics, it's similar. Same violence, same running games, threats. It's part of the course. So I would say youth league politics is unsurprising that happens. Entrepreneurs League, I would in a way, even the name dictates what would happen. There would be bribery. The name is just an allegory to what is going to happen. So,
but we haven't had such an instance in the past where there has been a suspension of a scheduled election, be it in the internal democratic processes of the NRM. Don't you find it quite strange?
No, I do not.
Timing?
No, I do not. I believe it's a pattern. If anything, this just shows how much is on stake, how much is on line for majority of these people, because they've invested heavily. And for them, most of them feel entitled to positions. Yet again, it's a political contestation. There's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. No one is entitled to win. It's up to the voters to decide if you're worth their vote. But because of the amount of money put in, everyone feels they need to bribe, they need to influence, they need to find one or the other to fix their candidate in. So, should it be done? I do not agree, but it's something. It's unsurprising. Yes.
Thank you for your thoughts. Imam, have you observed this process?
Yes, please.
What are your thoughts regarding the conduct of the elections at Kololo? But most importantly, the attitude of the party chairman, who also doubles as the head of state. Do you feel confident as a citizen going into 2026 that we can have credible elections?
Well, to me, like General said, it's always a matter of time. That the longer you stay on the dancing floor, the more it exposes your dancing skills. And to Museveni, to the president of Uganda, it's not about values. What do you bring to the party? It's about influence. And that's why you find over time, he has gone on ahead and recruit people like, Jennifer Full-Figure. What moral authority does she have, to influence the principles and pillars of the party? right? Prof talked about the issue of, ideals and ideas, becoming the priority of the party. But that's not what's happening, right? He brought in a good example of, the speech by Honorable Anita Among. So long as you steal public funds and you share with, people, that's okay. You can imagine. That's, a commentary from someone who has power and influence in this government.
And who is now supported overwhelmingly.
And she has been supported. Now that draws to, what's happening in that party. But going forward, 2026, I think we are going to experience the worst case scenario ever, because you have been talking about Youth League and Entrepreneurs League. But for the youth, they have grown up, they have been groomed into NRM. They have seen what their forefathers have been doing. So it's not a shock that they actually, practicing what you have preached to them. So to me, I'm not worried, because if your father and you're stealing something, that's what you're teaching to your kid.
So why are you not worried? Because we are going to have more thieves.
I'm not worried, because this is what NRM has put in them. How I wish.
So it doesn't worry you that this country is getting destroyed, moral and otherwise?
No, the context, you didn't understand the context.
Maybe.
Yeah, you didn't understand the context. I'm not worried because it's happening in NRM. But I'm worried, in the face of the young people who are coming up, the generation that is coming up. What are they going to face? But for NRM, I'm not worried, because this is happening and this is what they have been doing over time. Remember the words of General Muntu when he said when they captured power, they concentrated on capturing power, but not how to manage power. So this is what is happening. If you look at the pillars of NRM, socio-economic transformation, Pan-Africanism. If corruption is part of Pan-Africanism, then to us we should get even more worried. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for your viewpoints. Professor, let me engage you before we go in for a break. Let us now really examine the realities of this election. You have historical figures within the party facing very serious defeats. The case of Mike Mukula. You have now the former speaker, the Right Honorable Rebecca Kadaga.
From the race.
Well, the practical reality. Oh, well, you could qualify it. You could qualify it that way.
Defeat is why you contest and people vote.
But a withdrawal is a concession.
You can say I've served enough. That's not can serve. You withdraw.
The Honorable Balio Munsi, Chris, and the interesting pattern is that youngsters who have recently, emerged onto the scene, they are the ones that are sending them packing. What does this speak to the future of our country's politics? Is it a transition in the offing being choreographed by the NRM internally? What should we expect?
You see, we have to make a distinction between transition and succession. Having some new faces is succession, but not a transition. Transition is more fundamental. It would mean that have we transited from, for example, this politics of individuals rather than institutions. Because earlier on we were trying to give the reasons why all these altercations taking place. It is because we have killed institutions. We have killed institutions in favor of individuals. And it should be institutions that would mediate conflicts. Like the Constitution is an institution, by the way.
Yeah.
But also for example, a principle of separation of powers has been violated, where the speaker, Anita Among, is campaigning on the ticket that they take him to the SEC so that he can deliver parliament to SEC, to the executive, and curtail the autonomy of parliament. And yet we are in a Commonwealth parliamentary system, or governance system, where at least there should be some semblance of autonomy of the different branches of government, the legislature, executive, and judiciary, so that we do not have too much power in one of the branches, but it is being violated and it is being accepted. So what you are saying is succession, not transition, because the transition would have transited in terms of norms of democracy that have been violated, and then people support the violation of the norms. But to come back at your question about some new faces coming in, I think this is like the analogy or metaphor of a CNN. Those of you who used to catch CNNs, grasshoppers, we used to put them in the calabash, and when you put the lid, the grasshoppers start biting each other. Actually, you find even the neck is almost off. You know. So when you gag people like this, and they do not have space for expressing their dissent, whether within or without, even within the party there is no dissent. And the president normally goes around and says, you know, you people are not getting public goods, government goods, social services because of your representatives. And people have understood it like that, wrongly of course, because representing people like these MPs and the councillors are doing is not necessarily representing in terms even of development, by the way. Representation should not be looked at only in respect of representing populations and territories. There is representation of ideas. You are a flag bearer of NRM, you know. You are not a flag bearer of your constituents. You are a flag bearer of FDC. You are a flag bearer of PPF. PFF.
PFF.
You are a flag bearer of NOP, not a flag bearer of where you come from as such. So you should be carrying certain ideas that organization represents, and therefore we should look for somebody who has got ideological clarity, who has got policy clarity for your party, for the principles or policies that you represent. But where you just castigate anybody for what has gone wrong in the country, anything that has gone in the wrong country is not systemic, is not because of the system, is not because of the government, is for individuals that represent those territories. Therefore, because the people have been reduced to Nsenene and they are in this calabash, so when they wake up, they peck at each other. And then these people are losing. Even the young ones are losing. The old young ones, relatively young, are also losing. Because people are pecking at each other because dissent has been curtailed. And therefore there is no exchange of ideas. Let me give you an example of what is going on, since today we are talking about what is going on. A delegates conference should be a space and an occasion for deliberating on the policy direction of the country. Isn't it? Yeah. Isn't it? Have you heard that being discussed? Even NRM did not present the manifesto draft. Because this is where you present a manifesto draft and the delegates from throughout the country discuss it and internalize it and maybe give it approval. But they were told, gentlemen, you are here to vote people. There is no draft manifesto. It is coming. They were only given the theme, which is protecting the gains. That was all. So, I don't know what the delegates came to do. Delegates are supposed to come and discuss policy directions. Proposals from C.E.C. C.E.C, from what I have heard in the public, C.E.C, by the way, at first it was relayed on UBC, and therefore we captured most of it until there was soccer. I didn't hear proposals being presented that these are the proposals. Can you suggest, can you discuss and give us alternative proposals? Anyway, the point I'm trying to arrive at is that the issue is not competition of ideas. It has turned out to be competition of organism. Whoever can be competent in organizing organism, that is beating people, that is hiding people, that is paying people, that is abusing people, is the one who is voted into office. So it's not competition of ideas, it is competition of organism. I will give you an example. All these people you, moderator, are talking about that have defeated the old ones, what ideas do they stand for? So that we know that the new ideas have overcome old ideas. That the new policies have overcome old policies. That the new policy directions have overcome the old ones, and therefore we're having a transition, as you alleged. Transition from what to what? It is the theme of the manifesto is protecting the gains. What are the gains? Organism.
Corruption.
Interesting. Thank you, Professor, for that perspective. Focus on Parliament now takes a short break. Do stay with us. We'll see you back shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. You are watching Focus on Parliament on Civic Space TV. In this segment, we examine the controversy surrounding the Nakivubo channel land giveaway by the president to Kampala businessman Hamis Chibundu for redevelopment amid sustained and intense resistance by the Kampala Lord Mayor and a host of other environmental players. We discussed this in context of Uganda's public policy and the environmental protection laws. I am going to engage you first, Imam, as an environmentalist. What do we know so far about this crisis? Bring us up to speed.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the genesis of it all is, the letter that was dated 2nd August 2025, when the president wrote to, Right Honorable Prime Minister, ordering her to, look into the project that the businessman Ham Chugun had presented before him to beautify, to redevelop Nakivubo channel. In fact, he called it a Godre project. That project kicked off, and the press was called off, right? Now, the question was now the discussion on land management, but also the discussion on statutory approvals. How do you bypass all institutions and come to that conclusion? We have KCCA, we have NEMA. There was no consultation to that conclusion. But remember, this is the project where you have to, for example, look at the environmental impact assessment. You have to question, the discussion on land control. If it is, compulsory land acquisition, maybe from public to private individual gains, then there is that law in the Constitution. and there is a procedure, you must follow. Looking at, the coordinates where the land, starts and where the land stops. But that process wasn't really followed, and that's where we are up to when, the COSAS sat and, told every, statutory that was supposed to be into this process to look into this matter and, do what they call critical scrutiny and make sure that, it comes to, like everybody understand, like where is it going, the impact it's going to create on the public. So to me, if you come and want to put up such a project without doing, for example, the environmental social management plans that such project might come up with, you just bypass all those processes and you want to come up with a project, so there are repercussions that come with it. Yeah.
There is one particular concern which I want you to respond to, because you are an environmentalist, but the wider fraternity of environmentalists in the country are remarkably silent about this issue. We only see it being prosecuted on the political front by largely the Lord Mayor of Kampala, who also seems to be engaged in some sort of confrontation with the city councillors. So you, as the duty bearers to ensure that we protect the environment and the nature, what are you doing about this whole saga?
To me, you first look at what happened, as you have just said, when the Lord Mayor went to the NEMA offices and he was just blocked from entering. That was, I think, last week. Trying to question these processes, how do they come about? He's talking about, redeveloping this channel. And on top of that channel, you want to put up maybe some infrastructure. So to me, it's not about redeveloping the channel. It's about the gains he's targeting. So if you put the concrete maybe on top of, the channel, plastic may, choke the drainage to a certain point and you are not able to see. And that's what the environmental impact assessment is supposed to be doing.
The moderator is asking you, why are the environmentalists, civil society, missing in action? Why aren't you joining the cause? Giving your opinions also. What are you waiting for? Or you have left it, you have feared because Kwago was stopped from entering?
No, of course, if you have been, in news, we did what we could. That is, last week, we did what we could at our organization level. We put up posters, and we called out, for such to stop. And for us, we have a letter that we have written to the Chiham. It's the Chiham Enterprises, right? And they have
as your organization?
As my organization. That's what we have done. And that letter is stamped and we have received feedback. But when you look at that letter, it's what he has replied to COSAS. So to me, I don't think this is a feasible plan, because if you are, as Professor says, that all environmentalists are quiet on this issue, to me it takes us back to now, the political context of this issue. How is someone going to be viewed, resisting this project? They called it a Godre project. So to me, that's their position. I may think, or I may presume, that's their thinking.
Or you are fearing that the next time they are renewing your license, they might refuse to renew it because you attacked the project. Hence the civic space question now.
That's them, but for us, we have done our part, right? And if you look, for example, the 2018 report by World Bank, they talk about the impact of flooding, for example, in Kampala, with over 170,000, residents of Kampala being affected annually by these floods, and with a loss of total $50 million, lost in flooding. So to me, as Prof questions, this is not the time civil society organization should be silent about this matter that really affect them. If you look at the center of, where we generate most of taxes. It's the area that is most impacted by these floods. If we don't talk about it right now, I think we're going to do injustice first to the business community, but also to our, the development of our economy. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you, Imam. Brian, is this a political question? Is it an environmental question? Because it seems to have convoluted, complex issues. Number one, the matter was first whistleblown by the Lord Mayor in a correspondence addressed to the Secretary General of the National Unity Platform, for the reason that that party has a dominant numerical strength in the Kampala Capital City Authority councillors' membership. They didn't generate any response to the matter. Fast forward, we now see a number of other stakeholders engaging. Parliament has engaged, but we now know that the Speaker of Parliament has written to the chairperson of COSASE, halting the supposed investigation into that question, justifying that it has been escalated to another committee altogether. What is it in this project?
I think I'm very privileged here. One, I work at C.E.C as personal assistant in the office of the Deputy Road Mayor, therefore the office of the Road Mayor, for 18 months. That's one. Two, I run an environmental organization. Three, I participate in politics. Now, and all of them, I don't hide them. So there is nothing like environment, politics, human rights, this space, anything. It's all connected. The dots are clear. For example, you say Chitez is public health, but it's politics that should give public health money. You say, for example, and this doesn't also, you can't separate this one from what we are discussing in the previous segment.
Right. Mm.
The Speaker has told you she's going to carry Parliament to Museveni, like Professor was saying. The President Museveni has written to the Prime Minister and said, I want that project to happen. COSASE is managed by opposition who can oppose,
who can give a divergent
view on the project. So what does the Speaker do in order to appease the Museveni who wrote the first letter? Halt the investigation. Mm. So it's a political matter, environmental matters. Therefore, the political heads should do their part. The environmental people, us who are in environment, should also do our part. We can't all say that we have left it to the environment, to the politicians. Everybody must participate. But also the owners of the land, they are beneficiaries who are being affected by that project. Where are they?
Ugandans, because it is public land.
Now, those Ugandans should wake up. And there is nobody who was born. Every person fights, I think, first and foremost, for their right, and then they are able to fight for your right. Now, if you're squeezed at Nakivubo, you should be the first person to make some noise, because you're the one who's squeezed. Maybe Brian is in Intinda, where you should tell Brian, can we do this? So everybody should be responsible wherever they are. You can't be saying, if Aife doesn't write a letter to the Speaker or to NEMA, then we are waiting for you, you haven't written, and you want to blame them. Yet you are also being affected. Everybody is affected by what's happening in Nakivubo. So we cannot just say, road mayor, what. But what I know is that the power of the road mayor has been a question for so long. You're a lawyer. He was impeached. He has had issues with those councillors themselves. And I think also that the problem with Kampala is that our resources in Kampala are so high that we cannot allow the resources in Kampala, the people in Kampala, to be governed by uneducated people. Council is full of uneducated people. That council you see, those councils you see, he can speak some good Luganda, and he's friends with many, or they drink some alcohol, and they go and vote and send him to council. Now, when the ED comes to council, who is the minute taker of at C.E.C, she's the whole holds the custodian of the minutes. She's like, there is a clerk, yes, there is every, but she's the guiding, and they are discussing, all the directors of KCCA are just there seated, looking at these councillors who don't know, some of them who can't even speak English, but or even write 2 sentences. They are there seated, and they are giving directions to people to make decisions. So they contest. So every director at KCCA has a master's degree. You can't be director at KCCA without a master's degree, and the ED equally. So the technical wing is more knowledgeable than the political wing. That they can't even, and yes, and the technical wing should be aiding the political wing to manage the affairs of KCCA. But in this case, Museveni uses the political wing, the technical wing, to manipulate the political wing. Now that's why Lukwago finds himself, maybe with like three councillors who understand, having problems with the technical wing and with the president himself. So there's a lot of lag, there's a lot of difference in terms of knowledge and understanding between the council, which ex-officials, part of them should be the technical wing, but they are there not for the council, to help council, they are there to help Museveni pass through council easily. And in most cases, you find the council is opposition, the road mayor is opposition, and that's why there is also contestation and Museveni would want a council and the road mayor who are NRM, whom we can direct, like the ex-NRM. So even this small contestation Lukwago is putting on, you can say it's a show. People say it's a political show. It's what? It's political contestation between the road mayor and President Museveni. And that's how, and Museveni sees it like that. Even when sees it like that, I view it like that. I don't know how that people view it. It's political contestation. It's not the first contest they have. But also Ham has many buildings in town that are out of plans, that are in the road, that are everywhere. It's not the first time Ham is abusing public property or plans or KCCA instructions. So everything Ham does is illegal. That's why some people say that maybe the things Ham does are not his, because no other businessman can do what Ham does in town. Every time I was at KCCA for 18 months, but for every report we would write, all comments would write, Ham's name would be featured. It was a consistent name, constant. Every time you're writing on this way something, you find Ham there. Then you write about Untinda, you hear Ham. You're writing about Nakivubo, there is a Ham. You write about Kasubi, you hear Ham. Ham is everywhere, whether with a plot or putting a legal structure. There's a time a building, Ham was building, hit people and they died, I think, in town. We had to talk about his building. He was building a building which didn't have correct ratios, bad engineers, everything. But KCCA was looking on. So people should read about Ham more, not just look at Ham and Nakivubo. Ham is an entrenched state businessman in Kampala who does everything out of the law and out of order.
Ernest, what is your view? Is this a case for procedural impropriety on the part of the businessman Ham, who of course has the backing of the president, or rather you view it as political interests resisting development in the capital?
I believe it's both. Because as the previous speakers listed at length, Hamis Chigundu has a lot of substandard buildings. I studied at Makerere College for between 2012 to around 2015, and I was there while Ham Towers was coming up. Obviously, I was as a young impressionable boy, and it looked flashy. But along the way, as you grow older, you realize that what's wrong with this building? You enter the building because you're excited to be there. The escalators are not working. The tiles are cracking. The bathrooms bathrooms and toilets look substandard, and you're wondering, how does someone stay inside this building? But for some reason or the other, it has stayed there. I'd assume KCCA public health officials would find concern with the building, even structural engineers would find concerns with the building, but it has stood, it has had clients come and go, and it still exists. And even there was a contestation that the Ham Tower stands on Makerere University land, but somehow he got
Road reserve.
A road reserve.
And
sorry.
the hospital.
And the hospital, yes. But his building still stands there. It's a substandard building. If you were to go there right now, you'd be surprised that this building is still standing. But for one reason or the other, he has the right political connections that keep him running. So yes, it's a combination of a lot of things, and I cannot even say more than a previous speaker said because he has covered all bases. But one thing I'll say for sure, it's strange that for a bustling capital like ours, which you believe should be the beacon of standards, it represents the anyhowness of Uganda. Anything goes. If anything, the person who stands
Anyhowness.
the person who stands as a beacon of entrepreneurship in Uganda or in the city is a person who bypasses all bylaws, is a person who uses his political connections to get things done. And yet majority of his buildings do not stand up to code. So it says a lot about our lack of standards as a country and even as a city. So yeah, that's that much I can say.
Professor, this is quite a complex case. Clearly, Ham, who is a businessman, is being supported by the president. The political head of the capital is opposed to this redevelopment of the Nakivubo channel, which he contends first and foremost is public land, which should be subject to all the procedural requirements necessary to carry out that structural development. But also secondly, Ham doesn't seem to have any of those requirements that are required. In the interface with NEMA, the Lord Mayor was able to establish that, and Ham has not come out to refute that. Then we have the new dimension in terms of COSASE. What does this tell us about the state of governance in the country?
Thank you for that question. You said the project, the intended project that does not follow procedural requirements. Let's begin from the letter from the president to the prime minister. The letter was saying this is a godly plan. Now something divine is not subjected to human assessment. This is like the Bachwezi, Bachwezi, when they wanted to rule us, to rule those people in the past, they told them that they were divine, they came from heaven. And therefore you cannot challenge the power of people who came from heaven until the law came and challenged them. So for some time they ruled because they came from heaven, and if you looked at their faces, yours would burn. And therefore, please, you can't challenge somebody who has divine powers or has divine authority. So the letter says it all. It says the plan is divine. That is one of the first challenges I can see. The other challenge I can see, although, by the way, we could, I'm not completely opposed to that plan being there, but the way it wants to be executed. First of all, it is coming from Ham. Ham is, these days there is something called the deep state. The deep states or state capture. He's one of those people who can say are now capturing the state. As colleagues have been challenging that power that Ham has. When he wants to develop a place, he doesn't start from the KCCA, he doesn't start from NEMA, he starts from above. That constitutes, in my opinion, state capture. We need, this is a big project that puts lives and society and businesses at stake. So I'm not completely opposed. We can reshape that area maybe and make it better. But the procedures, as you are saying about, which are divinely compromised or conflicted, we need even a hydraulic engineer, I think. We need even a historian. People may say he's useless. We need to know the history of flooding of Kampala. Because you can easily put a structure there, but I'm told like something in 1958-59 there was too much flooding in Kampala that if such a rain had to come back and you don't have where water can go, because when you build it, you are going to close off any possibility of rain having an opportunity even to go away. Like it will come in with force because it is put in a small space. It will come with force and collapse all the buildings and structures that are put there. That one has to be considered. But then we don't know even what businesses will be put above the Mwara, the channel. Because somebody could put there a business that has got radioactive materials, isn't it? Because you have to even have those regulations. Supposing somebody is selling radioactive material products on top of that Mwara, and that Mwara, once it floods, it puts it into the channel and it takes it to Lake Victoria, the whole of population of Kampala can die. Kampala, Kisumu, and Bukoba. You know, this is a serious thing. You need hydraulic engineers to be contacted. You need planners. It is a big project that should even go through cabinet and should go to technical aspects like NEMA, like engineers, because the engineers have to be contacted, because this is a serious thing, because it affects Kampala, it affects Lake Victoria, and therefore it is not something that we should casually do, just writing a divine letter, going to the Prime Minister, and before we know it, Hamuchigund has already covered the place to start construct. Actually, he started constructing. I saw these excavators, graders, already doing something in that place before it is discussed, and yet it is putting the lives of people in Kampala and Uganda in jeopardy. It is property, businesses, because somebody coming with those impressions and exciting us, really, that doesn't mean that that is all that we needed to do. So it is a big engineering undertaking to be done. It can be done. I'm not saying it is impossible, but it's not something to be done casually by writing a letter to the Prime Minister, and before even we don't know whether there was a reply, the developer has already started working, cordoned up the place. He has not talked to anybody. As colleagues have been saying, this is public land. How does the public land just go to an individual like that without the legal consultations, without the engineering consultations, without impact assessment, without whatever? So me, I'm looking at it from that letter which says that this is a divine project. So it should not be challenged. But I think this is not something divine. It is not something that that should go unchallenged. My opinion, by the way, my considered opinion, is that that place can be redeveloped, but it should follow certain procedures and processes, and it should have divergent opinions, divergent views. In my considered opinion, it's not divine. Even the Bachoes who claimed they were divine and they came from heaven, when the law came without even a fight, they disappeared. We don't know where they disappeared, but that is not something to take lightly, in my opinion. But otherwise, I think the project can be done. There can be redesigning, but let it not be through excitement and godly and divine and the Prime Minister without consulting engineers, because it needs a lot of engineering works, that place. And even to determine what kind of businesses will be located above this channel. As I told you, this is a warning. Somebody can put radioactive materials business, selling them or conducting business on top of the Mwara, and there can be a flood. There can even be an earthquake, and then the buildings and the businesses collapse into the water, and the following day they will be found in Lake Victoria, and the lives of the population in Uganda and neighboring countries, up to Egypt actually, because you can have the Nile Basin region affected by the Mwara. You can see how important this channel is. It can affect all the countries in the river Nile Basin, on the lower side or the upper side of the Nile and the Lake Victoria. So it is not something to be taken lightly. I think let the businesses be halted, the plan be halted, as some people have suggested. And if we want construction on that place, let the institutions work. This is the problem which I mentioned earlier on in the discussion. Having institutions work. We have got institutions in place. we have the laws in place, we have regulations in place, we have systems that should work, because this is a modern state. We should not run it like a mature state. That somebody says, don't look at my face, and when you look at my face, yours will burn, then I continue looking down. No, there must be diverging views. Although I agree that that place can be redeveloped, but engineers should be consulted, institutions should be consulted, water people should be consulted, members should be consulted, and the consultation process must not just be dominated by one group. Let there be open dialogue without prejudices, without dismissing people, without contestations, because the life of people in Kampala, the lives of people in Kampala and the region, plus the businesses of Kampala and the region should not be subjected to unpredictable future just because some excited individual, because he has maybe abilities for state capture, wants to develop the area. We are not saying he shouldn't develop. By the way, before he even starts, people should find out whether he has the capacity. The financial capacity. You don't give us pictures that somebody used the artificial intelligence. You know, that's why artificial intelligence, by the way. Artificial intelligence builds, constructs something, and then we all of a sudden get excited. We don't know whether this younger entrepreneur really has the money, because that's not a small feat to construct good engineering, hydraulic engineering, to cover that space and make sure that Kampala does not flood again. It is not something that should be taken lightly. And the letter goes to the Prime Minister. Within no time, no day, the developer has already cordoned off the place, and he has already grading the place. Surely that is not how a modern state is run. This is Bachue's state running.
Brian, let us build on Professor's submission and inquire into the now looming political confrontation or contestation between pitting the Lord Mayor on one hand and the councillors of the National Unity Platform. I want you to
Not only that, pitting Kosase with now the speaker.
Yes.
It has gone that extent also.
So I want you to contextualize that and analyze the likely impact it could have on the 2026 general elections. Because on one hand, the Lord Mayor claims that this conspiracy was forged with the acquiescence of the National Unity Platform councillors. Their defense is that the Lord Mayor is blackmailing them with the view of obtaining sympathy from the public so that he can reclaim back his position. And that also seems to be the view of the Prime Minister and some members of the Kosase committee.
First and foremost, was through council? The answer is yes. Did the council know about the resolution? The answer is yes.
You seem to know who brought it to council.
And it was brought to council by the technical wing as a suggestion of C.E.C.
Okay.
Suggesting to council that the president would want to develop with they didn't mention the name. They said a developer, something, an investor, and now the investor comes out to be Ham Chubundu in the middle of everything. So if it went through council and it was passed, it means council as a national unity platform participated. Because without their participation, it can't go through council. Unless they can only say that they did not pass it, it was forged. Therefore, they joined the road mayor side. If they say it was forged, that's one. Two, do you think that the road mayor is he has served for 3 terms? One impeached, so he has served for 2 terms consecutively, but one he has been impeached. Even if he loses, he can lose. It's fine. Even with this one does not guarantee him the vote. It can. In fact, it can take away his vote. But as a person who these councillors have found the road mayor there and left him there. As the road mayor who has contested against Museveni's developments for the last, since he was Kampala member of Parliament in 2001, he has had that contestation with Museveni, not only at KCC in the court martial, in the courts, he has had a very brutal contestation against Museveni and these developments in Kampala, many times. So, you are not talking about a person who's just bringing something out of the blue that he has never done. He has had conversation with Hamuchugundu continuously. I told you, I worked at KCC for 18 months, and every report you wrote, you will find Hamuchugundu in it. Now, the councillors of National Unity Platform should be very careful, like the councillors of FDC of 2016, I mean, the councillors of BP of 2011, who decided, and the NLM councillors, who decided to impeach the road mayor, and in the next vote, people were voting Ane Anakuma road mayor. That's what they were voting. The 2016 election, they were saying who will protect the road mayor. Because the road mayor was from the court, was from an impeachment. So the people of Kampala were voting for councillors who can protect the road mayor. It ended up that FDC, which was close to the road mayor, they became majority councillors. And we could have a part of these councillors because the road mayor is here on the side of the people.
So you're predicting a repeat of that pattern? If
the National Unity Platform councillors cannot sit properly with the road mayor and discuss on how to handle this matter very well, the people are going to be affected by Hamuchugundu's developments. They have already been affected by other projects, but this is massive. So if Hamuchugundu continues there, the councillors, because the councillors have to side to choose, if the councillors of NUP are siding with Hamuchugundu, it means they are siding with the Prime Minister, with the Speaker of Parliament, and with the President of Uganda. Does NUP allow that its councillors should work from 7? No, if we go to politics, because do not say it's just Hamuchugundu. Hamuchugundu is developing because he's supported by the Speaker of Parliament, by the President, the Prime Minister, and the state institutions, including the UPDF and the police who are guiding them now. So, does NUP, in its quest for a democratic Uganda, support that? If it does not support that, if I was a leader in NUP, I would actually purge those councillors. I'd go to a party meeting, call them, they tell me the truth. If I find that they have done, because also these councillors are like MPs. I've worked with them. You hear a councillor speak 10 million shillings from a certain businessman, another one speaks 20. So even when I was there, you'd hear bribery allegations and some councillors would say, no, we don't want. So one never tallied. So when you go in, Ham has already bribed these councillors. That's why they're defending him the way they're defending him. So do not think that it's something to think about in a naive form. It's something that is serious. Hamuchugundu bribes political leaders, technical leaders, even the state bribes some generals and everybody. So he's a chief briber and he uses money. We don't know where the money comes from, but that's why we are.
Ernest, as we conclude in a minute, what does this tell us about the state of our priorities as a country? For instance, why doesn't the central government fund this redevelopment of the Nakivubo channel, since it's public land and the project is for the benefit of the wider Kampala population?
Well, sometimes even it's hard to understand their priorities, really. You can never be certain of what their priorities are. Is it for equitable development as for Ugandans as a whole, or it's just where I benefit as an individual? Because a state is made up of different individuals. It's not just this analogous and huge superstructure. It has individuals, and individuals who at the end of the day are just looking out for themselves. Because even I'm obviously going off on a tangent here, but let's just talk about the air quality of the city. Shouldn't the air quality be something that matters to everyone as a Ugandan? Yes, it does, but no one is working on the air quality. These constructions that go up anyhow, they affect the air quality, but there's no coherent plan on that. So in a way that has a trickle-down effect on everything else. There's this whole, there's a lack of collectivism, so to speak. There's just a lack of collectivism. All of this would matter if there's this collective ideal that if it affects that person, it should affect me as a person, even if I'm in a position of higher social standing. So generally, there should be a plan for the city, a coherent plan that does not just bow to capital, but we have not yet developed a collective sense of togetherness as Ugandans, and as long as that does not exist, you'll find whichever businessman comes with large bundles of cash will just get his project passed, even if that project has not gone through environmental impact assessments, even if it affects the air quality, and it's just a whole frustrating process, really.
Imam, your
Yes,
closing remarks, but I need to just quiz you on this aspect. Now, what do you want to be done? Where do you foresee this thing ending? What is the conclusion to this whole saga?
I think a gentleman from C.E.C would highlight about the 2016 Kampala Drainage Master Plan and the money that was allocated to it, close to 800 billion, something like that.
Around there.
What did it do? The discussion on pay contracts, who did what, it all rotates on the discussion on weak governance structures, right? If, for example,
I don't think they are weak. I think they are intentionally weakened.
intentionally we can thank you, but also, as Prof said, the lot of these institutions, where are they? Can the EDKCCA come out clearly and question, how that building is coming up without any fear? Can she?
So you are asserting that KCCA already has a master plan to redevelop the same channel, which they have now sidestepped to favor harm. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I wanted the gentleman, because he told us
Brian, is that so?
there is already a master
The KCCA
plan.
already has a master plan to redevelop.
Yeah,
the
to
channel.
develop that
No,
channel.
Now set it aside.
Not only that channel, but there are many channels
many channels
within
there.
Kampala,
Yes, it is.
of which it is inclusive. Where did it go? Where is that money? What did it do? So I think it's the issue of corruption that has eaten every sector of this country. If, for example, Kaham is capable of coming to KCC and bribes everyone, those councillors. So to me, it's going to come up even without those institutions, having scrutiny of it. If someone has the capacity to go on that, to go and get that letter from above, and how we see how we have been, how we have been trained as Ugandans, that so long as someone comes with a letter from above, the institutions won't question. So to me, such is going to go on, but a lot has to be done, as Prof said. What business, for example, are going to be undertaken on top of that channel? Do we know the implications for such businesses in long run? Those are my remarks.
I must appreciate you, my guests, Imam Mugisha, Ernest Tarwana, Professor Mambusa Ndebesa, and Mr. Brian Batenda at Haile for your able participation on today's edition of Focus on Parliament. Many thanks to you, our esteemed viewers, for your time and for keeping us company up to the conclusion of this program. Many thanks to the production unit for keeping us live on air. Our dear viewers, please engage us on our various social media platforms. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, we are on YouTube, where you can watch and subscribe to our channel. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.